Welcome once again to the Sage. And as usual, it's a real pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for having been with us all these years and all these months. And thank you as we look forward with excitement to the future, knowing that you will continue to be with us. Today, we are starting on a topic that is so important. In the previous episode, we talked about what I would almost call a state of emergency that exists in our country today. We are witnessing unprecedented increases in price of goods, tragically in foodstuffs as well. Inflation as never before. Inflation that is affecting the most common foodstuffs that are part of our staple diet in this country. It's amazing. I myself go to the market and can hardly buy anything anymore. I try to close my mind and my heart to what must be happening to millions of people who earn much less, who have large families to look for, or even small families to look after, and can no longer really, literally, put food on their table. We used to say Gary was what we all fell back on when things were hard. The joke would be, oh, we smoke Gary, put water in it, let it swell, and then we drink. Gary is no longer affordable. We had in the previous episode called on government to do what needs to be done. We had elaborated the many reasons that are contributing to the state of emergency we find ourselves in. But while we wait for government and our leaders to do what needs to be done urgently, we on the Sage, as we always do, believe in creating the change we need, or at least being part of that creation. And so we turn to all of our viewers, we call on all Nigerians and say, let us not fold our hands and die while we wait for help and salvation about this issue. Let each family look inwards. Do what you can to put food on your table. And our little contribution towards that call is to begin to feature a series of farming activities that we think each family can become involved in and therefore help to feed their families. We are featuring a series. We're going to be talking today, and I'm very excited about that, about vegetable farming. But we're also going to look at the issue of fish farming. We're going to look at the issue of poultry farming. And then also, in a later edition, the issue of other little animals that can indeed be farmed for food, from rabbit to snails, say it. We hope perhaps in the final part of this series to look at more in-depth what needs to be done at the policy and structural level to remedy the situation we have on hand. I have with me on set for today experts, people who have found joy but also profit in farming, and who are here to share candidly of their knowledge and expertise with us, so that every family can see that it is possible, and indeed you have no choice but to farm, and farm in some form or way so that the food on your table is increased. We cannot just sit and look. Many times we go to the market, we don't have the money to buy. But we can do something. We can do something, and we're going to prove to you that you can do something. Every little bit is an important contribution. So stay with us. You're going to enjoy this. I promise you that. You're going to learn a lot. I promise you that also. And when we come back from the intermission, you will meet our experts who have kindly consented to come and share their knowledge with you. Stay with us. Don't go away. Welcome back to The Sage. And it's a firm promise from me that this is an episode you will enjoy, and you will benefit immensely from the things we're going to discuss on this episode. But before we start, it is with real pleasure that I introduce my two experts on set today. Let me start with the beautiful young lady. You know, somehow or another, all my guests seem to be young. I think it's because I'm partial to young people. So even when I try to get an old one, like I thought the second one was, becomes young. Let me start with a beautiful young lady on set, Ogechi Iwanyam. Oge is very special to me. She's a C4C fellow. I'm very proud of that fact. I always am. But in addition, she does something that I am passionately attached to. Gardening, farming, growing stuff. I admit that's been for me a call in life. I have done many things that make it difficult to be consistent in growing things, but it has always continued to be a passion. And indeed, let me admit that when Oge came for our selection in her set of the fellowship, that when she started with our plants and brought specimens for us to see, I was sold. And she has lived up to all expectations and is now a professional, growing beautiful plants, taking people along with her, turning people's gardens into beautiful places, and sharing that passion that is so almost spiritual and edifying. Oge, welcome to the set.
Thank you so much for having me once again. Thank you.
And we have on my immediate left, Blaze Eche Itodo. Blaze, I am meeting for the first time. I can't claim the privilege of saying you're a C4C fellow, but Blaze is a young man after my heart too. A young man that has passion for growing things, for vegetable farming, for all kinds of farming. He is actually a photojournalist by profession, a videographer, a filmmaker, and a communications consultant. And that's what's so beautiful and intriguing about the passion you have for an expertise you have when it comes to farming. Thank you for coming on set. Thank you for agreeing to share your achievements and your secrets to those achievements with us. Welcome to the set.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
And let me say that this is one show in which I am going to be an active participant. Many times I try to be a good moderator and let my guests speak. But because I have admitted a passion to this myself, I shall, be part of it, intervene in the discussion when I feel, the need. And I know it will be a good discussion. We have a singular aim in this program. Three of us sitting here know that growing things for food and also for aesthetics, for the beauty of it. For me, I describe it as almost a spiritual thing to do. It is so fulfilling. It is, I'm sure Mother Nature cries out for it. But for the purpose of this show we're making today, we're saying that given the hard times we are in, this is crucial. Every single family needs to look inwards, find a way to grow things to add to your family's diet and feeding. It's a lifesaver. And so we begin the discussion as I turn to my two guests and say, start by telling me, how did you get into this? Were you born doing it? What drove you to it? And then also tell us why growing things, farming, is important. Who wants to start?
I start.
You're not doing ladies first, eh? Okay,
Go ahead.
Liz, over to you.
All right. It's a pleasure to be here once again. For me, I've always been fascinated about things growing, even as a child. You see somebody put a seed in the ground and it sprouts and becomes a plant and all that. So I've always been fascinated by that. So even in school, I was interested in agric science. So I like planting things around the house and all that, but I never took it serious. But deep down, I know this is one thing that resonates with me. So anytime I have an opportunity to put something in the ground to grow, I always take that opportunity. So fast forward to some years back, I just, during the COVID, I just felt I had all the time I needed to do this. And
you were in lockdown?
Yes, I was locked down. So I started planting some things in a container. A friend actually gave me some seeds, cabbage, lettuce, and some other vegetables. So I started planting them. And I hung them on the wall in my compound because there was no space and everywhere was cemented. And it grew that way. Though I didn't harvest from that particular episode, but with time, I started planting in front of the house. I just saw a space near a refuse dump and I planted maize and okra, and it grew after some time. And the joy, that I had watching it grow. And the day I harvested just a few, I made soup with it. It was like, man, this is not from here.
It's priceless.
So it grew that way. And when I moved to a place where I had more space and had where I could plant flowers around the house. So while I started planting the flowers, I said to myself one day, why not plant something you can eat? And I just said, wow, this is an opportunity to try some of the things I've been thinking about in my head that I would do one day. And I started planting. So for the first time, I planted carrots and it did very well. I planted pepper, tomato. Even the tomato, I didn't even plant them per se. I mean, when my wife goes to the market or I do and get tomato, when I wash, I just pour the water just by the fence and it grew. So I transplanted all of that to the spaces I've created around. I dug out the perimeter of my fence and mixed some manure and I poured it back inside and I planted all of these things. And funny enough, it grew. And I could come out in the morning and just go plug some ugu, plug okra, and I'm back in the kitchen and food is ready. So that's how it started for me. And ever since I took more interest. And this year, I planted even more things. I mean, anything I see that could grow around the house, I just plant them, hoping that it will yield and I will harvest from it. So that's how I came to being a home gardener and a farmer.
That's a lovely story. Okay, what about you? How did you get into this? What drove you?
I would say, as a little girl, I've always been surrounded by plants. My mom started with house plants. So I was always seeing my mom watching her house plants. Sometimes she even dissolves paracetamol in water and feeds the house plants. And then when we moved to another compound, like another house rather, that had more space, we grew so many things. We grew potatoes, sweet potatoes, different species of mangoes. We grew ugu, we grew scent leaf, we grew soursop. So gardening and farming has something I've always grown up with. I've been around plants. I've been surrounded around plants. So it's I don't want to say like it's an innate thing, but it's something I've always been used to. So that was how I developed the love for gardening. And then as an adult, I continued as I moved out of the house and I was on my own. I can't stay in a place without having plants, be it ornamental or edible. And then someone was like, "You're so good at this. Why don't you turn this into a money-making venture?" Quote or unquote. And okay, I decided to go into it as a business, though it was more like buying and selling, because as the money is coming in, I'm spending it. So that was what I was in, more like buying and selling, up until my experience with C4C that eventually turned me into an entrepreneur that I am today. So
Ah,
that's the journey, basically.
Ah.
Yeah.
that's great. Each time I have the privilege of having some of my past fellows on set, and they say that, that allows us to understand that the impact was, we made it, we achieved the things we wanted to achieve, and that they turned the knowledge, the skills we imparted into making their businesses profitable. And you know, the amazing thing is that many of them, despite the situation in the country, continue to grow. And for that, I am very proud. I'm proud of the resilience, I'm proud of their expertise. And now I've gotten carried away and deflected from gardening. And tell us, let me ask both of you quickly, do you think this is important? Why is farming, gardening an important thing at this time for families? What do you think?
I think for the average Nigerian, if you walk into the market, like I went to the market 2 weeks ago and I said, because I already knew pepper was expensive, I was trying to make soup. And I said, "Madam, please give me 500 naira pepper." And this man looks me in the face, in the eye, to tell me that there's no 500 naira pepper. That pepper starts from 1,000 naira. I was like, "Okay, give me the 1,000 naira pepper." And he gave me about 8 pieces of pepper for 1,000 naira. The cost of living these days is so expensive. You walk into the market, you say, "Okay, give me ugu." There's no 100 naira ugu anymore. Ugu starts from 200, 300, and you can basically count the number of leaves you get. So saying you want to go into home gardening or farming, it serves you in the sense that you can put food on the table for your family. In my garden, I have ugu, so I don't buy ugu. I have water leaf, so I don't buy water leaf. I have shoko, I don't buy shoko. So if I want to make food, I just walk into the garden, take what I need to take, and I go back in to cook what I need to cook. And aside that, the fact that you grew this from seed, you watched it grow, just like you said, the joy of watching it grow and then harvesting what you planted is absolutely priceless. You can't put a price to it. It's just, I don't know how to explain. I think you understand what I'm saying, because you've harvested from your garden. It's just this sense of pride, this sense of accomplishment that I was able to nurture this from seed to basically table, because you're going to eat it. It's just priceless. And
it is priceless.
Aside that, I feel if everybody goes into growing their own food, the demand for it would reduce. And I want to believe that the cost of food items will also reduce. Yeah. So.
What about you, Blaze?
Yeah, interestingly for me, it's actually therapeutic for me, growing these things. Yeah, because I know at times, I mean, we're all human beings, and at times when the things of life gets to you and there are so many things that are running through your head. For me, that's where I run to. Each time I run to the garden and I just pick up some, say, weed, I just look at the flowers, just touch them around, just even walking around. There's a relief that I get from doing all of these things. And for me, it's priceless, because I know how I feel before I go there. I know how I feel afterwards. So at times I just go there, just listen to music and just watch around and just appreciate these plants. For me, it's golden. It's like heaven for me, knowing that I could I don't know how, but I think I relate with them in some way. When I go around them and just touch them, I get relief. So I know they've done something to me, and probably I might have done something to them as well. And again, for me, it's, I don't know how to describe it, but when I eat what I grow, it's not about how small. Like just over the weekend, I harvested some maize from in front of my house. And we ate with the children. I roasted it. I mean, it wasn't like it was much, like for, say, for a meal. But the joy that we all shared a piece of corn, for me, was everything. My children would come around. I was grilling, so I sent them some inside. They would come around and we'll all play. I had my in-law around. My neighbors came around. And we're gisting while we're doing all of this. And for me, I felt healed some way. I mean, we could get the same corn from the market, say like for 1,000 or probably less. But the joy of knowing that I actually plucked this from what I planted while we're eating it, I didn't even, like, it was just so sweet for me. So,
I am listening to them and enjoying it so much because, like I said, it's a passion I share. And so let me say that we're making it very clear. And I think that my two experts brought that out very clearly. It makes financial and nutritional sense. You grow your ugu, you grow your water leaf, and so on and so forth. And they feed you. When you want to make your soup, you don't need to go and be begging for 500 naira pepper. The pepper you have in your garden, you don't need to spend that money. And so, yes, it makes food sense. It makes economic sense. But something we're also assuring you, and we shall explore it more later, is that it actually makes spiritual and peace sense. You find that in the midst of all our anxieties around us in this country at this time, it actually has therapeutic value as well. And so stay with us. We are going to continue this discussion next week. There's so much to discuss. We've told you the importance of planting, of growing, of farming. We will tell you the how. See you next week. Don't miss it.